Welcome back to the Chat Cave here on McGTV, youtube.com/Mike McGTV. And it's your co-host here, Mike McG, and
Max Andrews. How are you guys doing today?
hopefully they're doing well, given what we've been experiencing the past 24 hours or 48 hours with Batman v Superman. But before we get into that, again, follow Max and all the Three Geeks cohorts over at youtube.com/Three Geeks Network for the regular Sunday night podcast for sports nerds, which I believe you guys just finished one today as well.
Yes, sir.
And
That one on the books. Another sports nerds down. We had a great time. We've been away for like a month, so that was a lot of fun.
and also other fun little mini podcasts such as Animaniacs and Shaolin Sofa, and hopefully some other great projects and collaborations from all of us here. And be sure to follow them also at Three Geeks Podcast on Twitter, and follow me like McGTV. So let's get right into this. Now, what we're going to do in this podcast is not necessarily just go over again like our points and our reviews of this movie, kind of give you a truncated version of our thoughts on it, because you can go check out Max's thoughts over at their review of the movie, I believe right after you guys got out of the evening screening, right?
Yeah, we took about 2 hours to try to get ourselves back together. I was crying a whole bunch, so I had to be consoled. It was pretty ugly scene, but we got it all together for the for the podcast that night. Yeah, so we did do it pretty much right after the movie.
And you can check out my video log as well, which I just released last night, which goes into way more detail about what really didn't work for me with this movie. And so let's get right into it, though. First off, what kind of our initial thoughts were about the prospect of this movie, kind of what was going through our heads as we were anticipating the arrival of this movie over, 3 years, honestly, since summer of 2013, when they first announced that the sequel would include a new Batman to go along with Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. So what was kind of your initial, before we'd even heard of an Affleck casting, Max, what was kind of your initial thought to this?
Well, I'm a bit of a Bat fanatic, so anytime they're like, "Oh yeah, we're putting Batman in it," I'm instantaneously down. It doesn't really even matter. I feel like Batman always starts at like a 25 out of 10, and then they've just got to work him down from there. So like sometimes he ends up being at a 7 or an 8. Or a 9 or whatever, but he always gets the benefit of the doubt from me. So I was excited. I was really happy to hear that they're doing it, and yeah, I mean, I again, once you say Batman's in it, I'm on board. So the only thing that I didn't like was that it's 3 years out, and I don't like that we get all this advanced knowledge of everything. It's just got to sit there and stew in it.
I'm glad you bring up the fact that, the 3 years of hype to build up to it, because that's something that will factor in later to some points I want to make in the podcast. But yeah, when I first heard this announcement, I remember the initial video that came up from a Comic-Con where they had the guy who played that general character in Man of Steel, the guy who looks like Obama, Harry Lennox, I believe is the actor's name.
Yeah.
When he came up to just read a segment from The Dark Knight Returns to kind of pitch the general idea or mood that they want to maybe tackle in the movie. It's the dialogue of Bruce Wayne saying, like, "I want you to remember, Clark, my hand at your throat. I want you to remember I'm the one man who beat you." And then you see the new logo with Batman and Superman combined. I was excited, because if that was the direction they were going to go with an older, more experienced Batman taking on this Superman, and a Batman that was going to be echoing themes or echoing ideas from Dark Knight Returns especially, then yeah, I was all for this. I was excited. Like I stated in my video logs prior, Man of Steel, there was stuff that worked for me and stuff that didn't, but I could see how it could springboard into the larger universe, and to incorporate Batman into it, I felt would be a very welcome addition, as it were. But as like you said, the hype started rolling. What was your initial response to Affleck casting?
I was I was one of the few people who was not like, oh, Ben Affleck, this is gonna be terrible. I was actually on board for that. I mean, he's just coming off Argo. He's just coming off Gone Girl. And I mean, yeah, he did just also make that stupid movie with Justin Timberlake. But I mean, you know, like people got to get paid, you know.
Runner.
Yeah, Runner. I watched that movie and it was not good. But
yeah. but at times I'm like, this is evil Bruce Wayne. Evil Bruce Wayne would have a grotto full of man-eating crocodiles.
Yeah, you know, like that's how he rolls. But
sure.
But you know, so I was really excited because I was like, this is not Geely Ben Affleck. Okay, this is not Daredevil. This is something else because we've turned the corner where that hokiness is not acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
So I was pretty excited, like from the get go. I was definitely 100% behind Batfleck, and I'm proud to say I did not. You know, in these political times, I did not waver. I did not. You know, I'm not wishy-washy. I was stalwart in my support for the Batfleck.
Yeah, I maintain throughout it too. I mean, sure, it's fun to kind of poke fun at some stuff, such as the fact that he was already in a superhero movie. I think back in my Blip TV days, I did a little joke about it where he was supposed to be playing Batman opposite Superman. He just showed up in his Daredevil costume and was like, "When, Lord, when? When's gonna be my time?" From Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. And so
Phantoms, yo.
He is the bomb in Phantoms, yo. Still is. And now he's the bomb in this.
Yeah.
But the good kind of bomb. Because that's the thing is, throughout all of this, I never understood the Affleck hate, even before Daredevil, even before this. Because he's really not the biggest problem Daredevil has. Daredevil, on from a movie standpoint, has a lot of other problems other than him being the lead.
Yeah, like my problem is like with Daredevil is how do you get a group of like 10 to 15 supposedly like smart people in a room, right? And they're like, what makes a good scene? Maybe they should have a fight on a playground. And then everyone just agrees that that's a good idea.
Well, everything's cyclical, and we worked our way back around from terrible to good with Daredevil, at least. As you can check out on our website here with some Daredevil commentaries.
Oh yeah,
season 2 coming soon.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited for that. But you know, it's yeah, that wasn't Ben Affleck's fault. You know, like he's just an actor in the movie. They tell him like, hey, we need you to act this scene out, and he's got to do it. So I feel like people put a lot of hate on him for Daredevil. That's unjustified because everybody was shitty in that shitty movie.
Yeah. And that's the thing is what you were saying is very true. The fact that he worked his way out of kind of that pit of people loathing him for some reason with stuff like Argo, like Gone Girl and, you know, The Town and a bunch of, and he got prestige very much. I mean, not as extreme as the way like Robert Downey Jr. did with regards to, I mean, he obviously had some vices and some addictions he had to overcome as well. I guess they are kind of similar in a way because I don't know why I was thinking they could be different. Actually, yeah, they both came back from a lot of like dark places to become really now I view his Batman as the flagship character for this budding DC cinematic universe. This is the character that they should be building this on because yeah, as much as people were harping on this casting, he turned out to be the best thing about this movie.
Yeah, hands down.
So let's get into just briefly, because like I said, we already have some videos and reviews stating more details about this. Long and short of it, how would you sum up your review of Batman v Superman?
An hour goes by before the movie, like the movie technically starts, but then an hour goes by and then the movie starts. And it's kind of a jumbled mess, but when like the Batman Superman fight actually does just get going, it's it's really fun to watch. So, you know, it's a mixed bag, but I think this is not any of the actors' fault. And I feel like there are good performances given. It's just it wasn't packaged correctly.
I agree. Like, here's my long and short of it is, acting wise, everyone seems well fit for their role. That was I was even saying that about Man of Steel, is that everyone seems tailor made for their roles pretty well, with one Facebook Mark Zuckerberg exception. Uh, but yeah, the acting and the actors are fine, but they're not playing characters. They're playing talking points. They're playing gimmicks and plot points. They're playing cutouts for action sequences. No one feels really developed here. You don't get a sense of anyone's journey from point A to point B for a good part of it. I'd say Affleck comes the closest, just because we're really following him quite a bit from his retold origin again to why he hates Superman, quote unquote. And there is no structure to this movie. Its narrative jumps all over the place. There's a lot of subplots and side characters that don't need to be there, or could have been lumped into the main story and done away with. And the main thing for me, above all else, is that, yeah, there are a couple of little thrill moments I got out of watching it, but for a superhero movie, it's not fun. And when I say fun, I don't mean it has to be like feel good, like he has to be doing one-liners, you know, Batman's got to be doing like 3 somersaults in the air off of like a flaming lion or something.
Though that would be cool.
It would be. But something about even in action sequences, I just couldn't engage. And part of it was I'm not invested in what happens to these characters. And yeah, this feels like something I've seen many, many times before. And it does feel like going through the motions at times.
Yeah, I mean, I felt in the beginning of the movie that, like, you weren't even really watching scenes happen. You're kind of just watching these little flashes. And yeah, like the people move around and talk to each other, but it's not like, you know, anybody. It's like a highlight reel.
Yes. This actually has a kind of the same effect on me that I had watching Amazing Spider-Man 2. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I actually kind of place a little bit more above this.
Wow.
Just for the fact that at least in Amazing Spider-Man 2, there was a believable relationship dynamic taking place between him and Gwen Stacy that anchored me, at least. You know, that was a relationship I bought into. So when that gets paid off in that movie, I did feel something for those characters. With this one, for example, Superman and Lois Lane. Yeah, they demonstrate in the movie that they are in a relationship together, and they say they're in a relationship together, and for the most part act like they are. But there's nothing more beyond kind of just what's presented superficially on the surface to make me give a crap that they're in love. So when at the very end, the revelation of what he mailed to his mom to give to Lois is revealed,
yeah,
I called that as soon as that scene happened. I'm like, oh, it's this.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Yeah, it was totally cheesy and tacked on.
My audience loved that, though. They were like, oh.
I mean, I feel like the movie could have been much better, but I also feel like I'm not hearing as much hate for it as I thought I would. So I think that's good. I'm glad people are going to the movie and enjoying it. I'm sad that I didn't, but I really hope that people go and watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and definitely, I don't want to take away the viewing experience from anybody, or to say like if you enjoy this, there's something wrong with you. Because like I said, there's stuff we enjoyed in it.
Yeah.
There are little nuggets there. Like we said, Ben Affleck is great. Off the top of my head, I love it when they pull stuff from the source material, like a lot of Batman's dialogue when he's dragging Superman around on a tow cable and is saying like, my parents taught me when you're when they were lying in the gutter, that the only way for the world to make sense is if you force it to. That's a line straight out of Dark Knight Returns. The scene where he basically explodes that one guy by shooting his flamethrower tank. I mean, it's a different context, but the dialogue is straight out of Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty film. I mean, not pretty, but it looks and feels very comic booky, and even though it has muted colors and dark colors, it is vibrant, at least with its visual imagery.
I'd agree.
If Zack Snyder was just a director of photography, this film would be astonishing. But I feel the big issue is that he gets so caught up with the imagery that the pacing of his films.
No, George Lucas did.
Mm-hmm.
He is not a director. You know, like, he shouldn't be in charge of that. Like, I mean, and it's awesome the steps that he takes and how much he brings the genre forward. I don't want to take away from it, but it's like, hey man, maybe you're not so good at this. Maybe you shouldn't do it. You know, like,
I mentioned this in the previous vid, but just really quickly, something I noticed is that I like Zack Snyder's faithfully adapted movies more than when he is like, for example, I like his 300 and I like Watchmen, but you know, given a couple of creative things in Watchmen, there's not a lot of wiggle room for him to be like, I'm gonna go off the rails and do this. You know, I'm gonna totally sucker punch Watchmen and everything. I mean sucker punch in, you know, the way Zack Snyder means sucker punch. But when you give him something like, okay, we're gonna give you Superman. Okay, cool. Which story? No, we're just going to give you Superman and you just go with it. Like, I feel that that's where his weakness kind of lies, is he can recreate something that already has an A to B plot very well. But when it comes to him kind of building the world and setting up the rules on his own, it doesn't work. And that also incorporates, you know, who he brings into the writing process, such as David Goyer or Chris Terrio, even to a lesser extent having Nolan on as a producer. But all right,
yeah, I don't want to try to spoil anybody's experience at the theater, or I definitely want you to go see it. I feel like, you know, if you can get in at the matinee price or whatever, or, you know, go on $5 Tuesday, do that, you know, but definitely still go see it.
Yeah, formulate your own opinion. This is just us kind of, you know, wanting to get a lot of our concerns and a lot of our interests out in the open with regards to this movie.
But you know, in the interest of positivity.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like, I'm not angry at this film. Surprise.
Right.
In my video log, it might appear I might be slightly annoyed because I'm nursing my 3D headache from the movie. And usually after I watch a 3D movie, like after I watched Star Wars in 3D, I was so like miserable. But that's the main thing. But I'm not angry. I'm more just kind of deflated and disappointed that this is kind of what we got. But, you know, the plan's still going on ahead. And hopefully Suicide Squad and other movies can turn it around a little bit more. And hopefully they'll kind of be able to get the direction, you know, honed down a little bit more before Justice League Part 1 comes out. So this brings us into something I would like us to kind of go in the spirit of some positivity and some more progressive type of discussion, as opposed to just griping over and over on our big issues with the movie. What would we have done differently with the plot or, you know, the setup of this film? And before we get into this, I do want to stress, to go over certain things we would have done differently, there's probably going to be some big spoiler territory that we're going to be treading on, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like Max said, go watch the movie for yourself. If you haven't yet. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie yet, go watch the movie for yourself. You know, formulate your own opinion and ideas about it. Come back here and then see if you agree or disagree with what we would have handled differently with this, so you have an idea of what we're talking about here. So, that being said, let's dive in, shall we? Max, you have some notes on some things you would have liked to have seen or would have liked to have improved on or changed?
Yeah. While I did like that Batman is doing like solid detective work,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he wasn't portrayed as smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it was kind of lacking in that area, and that's kind of an easy fix.
Right.
Now then I was trying to kind of, if I would have like recut the movie to try to make it work a little better, I think I would have just had Batman chasing after, like let's say Two-Face or Riddler, any number of villains, Scarecrow. Terrorism is a scary thing. Scarecrow could be a terrorist in this new world you've set up here.
Yeah.
And he has a dirty bomb. Like, so Batman uses the excuse of a dirty bomb in the beginning. Why not just actually have him he's chasing down a dirty bomb?
Yeah. Why does it have to be a cover for him to follow Lex Luthor?
Right.
It's funny you mentioned that, because for a while before I realized that, like, oh well, he's just trying to get the kryptonite from Lex Luthor. The white Portuguese, for a long while, I was thinking, like, is this kind of a Joker thing? Like, white Portuguese and things like that. You think when you think white in Batman world, you think pale Joker and stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. Could this be like kind of a Suicide Squad integration?
Yes.
Almost? Like that. Is that why Batman is in Suicide Squad? Or
exactly.
That's what I was thinking that I was going. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So we're just catching up with Batman, a day in the life, and then somehow this leads into conflict with Superman. I was all for that, but then when I realized, like, oh, well, no, it's just to further his issues with Superman. He's just gonna blow up everyone he sees to get this kryptonite, who works with Lex. Okay.
Oh yeah, and Batman killing people, I was not down for.
Here's my thing about that, and this is definitely something that I feel channels into what I would have done differently with the movie too. I am not opposed. I mean, the purist in me, of course, I like my Batman to toe that line. I like my Batman to come up to the edge of it, but then he has to kind of realize and discipline himself into why he can't cross that line.
Yes.
Because that demonstrates a lot of relatable things, for us as the viewer or the reader, is that he is human, is that he is susceptible to a lot of the anger and frustration and vengeful instincts that we are, and that he has to remind himself of that constantly. But at the same time, Batman has killed before in the movies.
Well, yeah.
It's not something, when it's taken into other media and it happens, I'm not shocked that it happens anymore. Not as shocked as I was when they did it with Superman, because, I mean, even though Superman had done that kind of sort of in other movies as well, it was never outright murder or anything like that. I mean, Keaton's Batman blows up people left and right, and I didn't bat an eye.
I mean, he's and for the most part, at least when Batman was shooting at people, it was mostly all bad people that he was shooting at in this movie. Unlike in the '89 Batman, where he just likes to machine gun whole streets full of crowded people in hopes that he might accidentally hit the Joker, because apparently Batman is the worst shot ever.
It's a very exaggerated version of Nolan's "I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you," because that whole flamethrower exploding thing, I'm like, well, yeah, technically the guy could have gotten out of that pack in the 0.5 seconds you allowed him, maybe, but you know what? That is still killing him. But that didn't bother me. What bothered me about having a Batman in this movie that kills is that it automatically negates his entire motivation for wanting to take on Superman. His whole thing about Superman is that when Superman's around, people die. And he doesn't want that to be happening anymore. So when he comes to him with this argument, I'm like, that's hypocritical.
One could argue that Batman only kills bad people, a la the Punisher.
Okay. So we're going to get into the Matt Murdock, Frank Castle rooftop debate now.
That's really what it boils down to. But, yeah, I prefer, I would like them in a movie. I liked him, because never before in a movie have they showed like Batman stabbing somebody, which I think is a little more brutal than shooting them.
From what I gathered, he stabbed that dude just to keep him in place on the wall. Like I had a feeling, like is that because that knife is now stuck in the wall and that dude just can't move.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, yeah, like I like that. I mean, because it's more visceral, and I feel like they don't have to have him killing people. They just have to have him like really fucking people up.
Oh, I mean, and he does too. Like,
yeah,
you see the line. He comes up to the line when he doesn't cross it. He comes up to it really close. Like it's straight out of Arkham City stuff. Like he punches that dude's head right through the floorboards.
Oh, dude, like he killed all those dudes in that room. I'm sorry, dude. Like those guys are done.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, this whatever hyper reality Zack Snyder's filming in, those dudes are still dead.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean, like, yeah, if they would have dialed that one back like one notch to where he like wasn't killing everybody in the room, that would have been the like 10 out of 10 as far as like anything you've seen Batman do live on a movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I'm not vehemently opposed to a Batman who kills. I prefer not to have a Batman who kills on screen, but if he does it, so fine. That's the way they kind of view it. It's just that I don't. When he makes it one of the central themes of his argument against Superman is that, like, well, you know, he places lives in danger, innocent and guilty, all the same. I'm like, dude, you kind of almost do the same thing. I don't know where you get up, like basically having being uppity towards another vigilante. I'm like,
yeah, he just seems like a you can't play in my backyard. These are my toys, kind of. You know, it seemed childish, but all right. So yeah, so I mean, the level of violence can be debated, and I'm actually, I mean, if you go back through the history, Batman started out killing people. He started out with guns.
He had a gun, yeah. He had like a shoulder holster and stuff.
I mean, so like anyone who wants to use historically, Batman doesn't kill people. You're actually wrong. So
no, he totally does. Yeah,
yeah, that's fine. Like we can have the Batman I grew up with never killed nobody.
It's a welcome addition to the mythos that his aversion to firearms is there. Like, it's not how he started, but it makes him a deeper character that is implemented with him now.
Yes. All right. So there's that. But yeah. So let's say if you want to do a hardcore Suicide Squad tie-in, yeah, the Joker's got a dirty bomb somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Batman's got to find it. He is now branding people, cutting them up, getting real brutal, and Superman decides, you know what? This doesn't need to happen. I'm Superman. I can just stop whatever problem he's having, and he doesn't need to do this. So let's say Batman, and they could just have this scene play out exactly like it did in the movie. Batman's chasing somebody down in a car because they've got the information that he needs, or the dude he needs to beat up is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman just stops right in the middle, in the middle of the road. Hey, man, you don't do this crap anymore. I'm here. I will take care of business. You can leave people alone.
That is almost like that scene, where he turns the corner and there's Superman. A couple of things are changed up, but it's almost the way they kind of met in post Crisis on Infinite Earths continuity with John Byrne's Man of Steel series. Is that Batman's on a case, he's tracking down some people, and then out of nowhere, Superman like grabs his bat line and is like hoisting him up into the sky because he's like, "You've done enough damage, outlaw."
Yeah,
like that would be kind of cool. And honestly, I could see it a little bit more from Superman's side of being like, yeah, this dude's going way too far. He's branding people and essentially sending prisoners to their deaths in prison.
I didn't understand that either.
From what I gathered, it's that he'll like cattle brand them essentially, and then if you have the brand of the bat, that means you're someone really horrific. Like the dude he did that to was like a sexual predator on children and stuff like that. So it's basically like if he did that to Jared Fogle, if he bat branded Jared Fogle and
I just don't understand. Like I thought that in prison they'd be like, oh man, you got branded by the bat, like that's kind of like a mark of like respect, because I mean like Batman whooped your ass and you're like walking around telling people about it.
The way I interpret it is that like that was kind of his way of saying like, have at it, all you more, you
Yeah,
lighter offenders have at these scumbags.
I see that. Yeah, that makes sense too, and
And
I like that.
I did kind of like that because it was a little detail that exemplified the bitterness of this older Batman.
Yes.
Like he is burnt out. He's at the end of his rope with everything that's happened on top of Metropolis.
Goodness,
And
sorry.
it made what's that?
Oh, the little blinging.
Oh, it's okay, no problem. It made sense. Like that was a little detail I actually did kind of like. I'm like, sure, if Batman's gonna be ruthless, that would be a ruthless thing to do.
Yeah.
On the side of some character development, one thing I would have done differently is develop Superman a little bit more, because that really affected my viewing experience of this a lot. The reason I'm not invested in Superman throughout this movie is because it feels like he hasn't really learned or achieved anything since Man of Steel. Like even over the course of this movie, he's still in his Man of Steel starting position. And I'm not saying he has to be like Big Blue Boy Scout, ever the optimist, always with a wink and a smile. No, I can understand in this universe why that wouldn't fly, pun intended. But, there are moments where they could have had something a little bit more than just a brooding Superman. Like when he has to go away to rescue that little girl in the fire. That could have been a great scene. Like it was kind of a beautiful scene. He's slowly like bringing her down from the fire. All these people gather around them and like are so grateful and stuff. And yeah, they play up the Jesus allegory a lot in this movie with him. But what took me out of that scene is the fact that throughout all of that, Superman doesn't crack a grin. He doesn't look at all like, yes, I feel like I have purpose doing this.
Yeah,
he's way too depressing.
Right.
Even when he's in the tub with Lois, I'm like, dude, come on, Amy Adams naked in a tub. Would you cheer up, man?
For real, dude. Like, okay, my whole thing was, and I hate to agree with if you listen to the Three Geeks podcast at all, I hate to agree with Dan, but I feel like they could have done. They needed to do this movie two ways, and they need to brighten it up when Superman's on the screen and he's doing awesome Superman things. Because there's nothing wrong with having it be, he is the great shining, do-gooder guy. So I didn't like how much they toned him down. Like I liked it in Man of Steel. I didn't like it in this movie because I feel like, when you're comparing it with Batman, there's just too much.
Yeah, they're way too similar in the movie. I'm like, what exactly is the problem you guys have with each other? You're almost identical with regards to your moods and your approaches to things.
Yes. So
I agree with you on the Man of Steel. The reason I think I was okay with it in Man of Steel a little bit more was because it made sense for that movie, because he was having his identity crisis. He was figuring out his place in the world, so I could be a little bit more lenient with his whole thing. And while he might still be figuring out certain things about, his role on Earth here, I felt there had to be a little bit more optimism injected into this character for me to really, really invest in what happens to him.
And then it's like they show him dragging that ocean liner, the Titanic or whatever, across, to the Fortress of Solitude, right?
Yeah,
with no payoff.
Well, and all those scenes, I have a whole thing about that. Is that those are scenes that you could have placed anywhere in the movie. Like the only reason they're there is to have something cool and iconic in trailers.
Yes.
And I hated that too, because they were really well shot and really beautiful, but with regards to servicing the story, it didn't really have payoff in that sense.
There's no reason for it. So, and they're cramming all of these scenes down our throats. This whole 3 years we're waiting, and it could have been all these little snippets of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have they could have all the little extra Justice League, like the Aquaman, and they could have had that be a trailer, and you're not showing
Yes.
anything in the movie. They could have most definitely had Cyborg be a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm talking about. But like, change up your marketing.
I wanted to say, with regards to that stuff, with regards to the structure of things, you could still have those what could be perceived as incidental scenes where it's Superman resolving some crisis after crisis, but within the context of maybe perhaps this is Lex Luthor testing him, or maybe perhaps this is Bruce Wayne testing him in a way. The way they were kind of setting it up in the beginning with that terrorist group, because those were Lex Luthor's men. Like, I was kind of hoping, like, okay, maybe this fire's happening because Lex Luthor hired an arsonist to kind of do it to test, like, Superman's reaction time or something like that, to give it a context other than it's just something that happens. And that way you can still kind of show off the altruistic, optimistic side of this character without just having a scene there so you could have Neil deGrasse Tyson had to do a voiceover.
Yeah,
like I don't need Neil deGrasse Tyson or Anderson Cooper in this movie to kind of get, or Charlie Rose to give their 2 cents on this character. Just show them.
I'll listen to NDT tell me about space anytime. That guy's got a voice like butter.
I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, that kind of is the balancing act I feel they're not doing so well with this universe so far. Is they want so bad for all these larger than life and exaggerated characters to be incorporated into a real world setting, so much so that we always have to hear about every little political global ramification that these characters will have on our society.
Yeah.
That no matter what big fight, like, I guarantee you, had the movie been allowed to go another half hour after it had stopped, the Doomsday fight would have been followed up by Wolf Blitzer, CNN round the clock coverage segments, everything. Well, here's the assessed damaged area on this abandoned pier, everything like that.
But I mean, like, they mess up Gotham pretty much the same amount they mess up Metropolis.
Well, they're just, I mean, you know, they're brother cities just across the bay from each other.
Everyone's so pissed off about how much Superman messed up Metropolis in the first movie, and then he goes and messes up Gotham pretty much the same way.
Well, this is something I wouldn't even bother with in the movie too, is the fact that they stress again and again during that whole thing, like, oh, don't worry, it's uninhabited. Oh, don't worry, there's no one there. Oh, don't worry, it's the ghost hour of traffic.
Yeah.
I was kind of tired of that. I'm like, I get it. You guys really want to stress that there's going to be no big loss of life.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't have to keep retelling me that. I wouldn't have even acknowledged it. Well, maybe acknowledge it once. Here's the whole thing. Batman, I never would have bought that Batman would have a fight with a godlike being in his hometown, in the heart of it. Why not just have them fight on that island that's already abandoned? Have all your big action sequences take place on that island.
Because that's what Batman would do anyway.
Yeah. So that way you don't even have to keep bringing into question, like, okay, this place is uninhabited. Don't worry, audience. We're not repeating what we did before.
And also, it would prove further Batman's point. It's like, you need to check yourself, because look what I've done to fight a god. I brought you to a place where we could fight. I've handled it on my terms, and I won.
That's a great point. That is something he could have psychologically hit him with, to be like, look, here's what happens when I don't put innocents in danger. You know? Here's what I'm capable of in all my abilities when I'm not just casually throwing innocent lives into the mix.
Right.
Like that would have been a kind of effective way of doing it too.
Yeah.
I mean, to his credit, Superman does have a really one good strategy in the Doomsday fight, in that he punches him into outer space as much as he can. Like, I was like, okay, cool. That's a good idea. That's honestly what I was kind of hoping he would have done a little bit more with Zod, was that, yeah, take the fight out of the solar system if you can.
Yeah.
Like, this creature can take it. So yeah, you just keep distancing him from the planet. I actually like that scene quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was when the movie got rolling and things were actually happening in a coherent order.
Yeah.
You could figure out what was going on. So, I mean, like, yeah, that was the other thing, too, is that was the major part of The Dark Knight Returns, the comic book, they kind of pulled all the teeth out of, like you're saying, Batman's argument doesn't hold any water, just because they all do the same things. Like, there's still the same level of destruction. There's still the same like everything going on, and it would have further proved the emotional progression of Superman when, after he loses to Batman on a deserted island, he decides to take the Doomsday fight up into the stratosphere where no one will be hurt.
Yep.
But
about the fight, were you happy with how that got resolved? I mean, in the fight itself, like the mano a mano thing, what stops Batman from doing what he does, doing what he would have done? What'd you think of Martha?
I thought it was kind of, I thought it was okay and kind of stupid at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it should have been more of a Wonder Woman stopping, because I mean the whole point is Batman planned out this fight enough to know he's like, I need this robotic suit. It could probably take like 3 punches from Superman before he really starts tearing it apart.
Right.
So that's all I needed to last is 3 punches. So he's, down to the last little bit of it. Now he's got Superman on the ropes, but he's all effed up too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Wonder Woman shows up.
Yep. Honestly, like, yeah. I would have bought Wonder Woman's introduction into the fray at that point more so than when she does finally show up. I would have bought her coming in to kind of be like, guys, knock this shit off. But more so than Lois, I feel poor Amy Adams, like Lois is really kind of just there. Like her whole inclusion into the resolution of that fight wasn't really needed because Batman was already wavering before she even showed up.
Yeah.
He was already like, this might not be right. And then she's like, it's his mother. And he's like, oh, well, it certainly isn't right.
Oh, well, I had a mother once. I remember those sort of things.
It just made me think while I was in the theater. I'm like, so does this mean Bruce Wayne just goes to pieces every time he hears the name Martha? How does he do that for 40 plus years?
And then it's like, all of a sudden, everybody knows who everybody is. Like, everybody knows everybody's secret identity. Like, all of a sudden.
I bought Clark Kent finding out Bruce Wayne's identity because the way they portrayed it at that gala made sense to me. I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's fine. But it's like, okay, Lex knows who everyone is. Clark knows who everyone is. Batman knows who everyone is. Lois Lane knows who everyone is. Fucking Terry knows who everyone is. Like,
oh man, I feel so bad that I'll get to Lex in a second. But with the Batman thing, with the Martha thing, that kind of throughout this movie. The fact that Batman is acting mainly off of dreams he's having.
Yeah.
That combined with that Martha thing, I'm like, so we're just following a crazy person?
That's what I'm saying. Like, Batman wasn't smart, It was just like, he was like a guided missile.
Yeah. Like, the execution or the motivation behind why he should take on Superman needed to be a little bit more beyond just prophetic dreams. Like, there had to be, let him be observing Superman, let him be testing Superman at times, but then based on those results, based on his actual like research on Superman, he can come to deduce that inevitably, I mean, it's going to come down between him and humanity, and we have to stop it. Like, that would be a kind of a good way to approach it.
I mean, because after the initial confrontation between Batman and Superman trashes the Batmobile. I feel like they're missing out on, it's like, okay, this is when Batman starts his how am I going to fight Superman strategy session. And he's like, his reaction time is this, and that. He's got this, and that going for him. The heat vision takes about this long to cycle up before, blah, blah. And I'm going to need something.
Well, and let's not forget that the Batmobile scene, the scene where they just have Superman like wags his finger at him and flies off, and Batman's like, "Do you bleed?" They don't see each other again after that until the big fight.
Yeah,
and that's not enough really to go on. Like, literally a couple of scenes before, they had just met in civilian identity, one not knowing who the other one is at this point, or maybe he does. It's never really established like how much anyone knows about anybody else, and that brings me to Lex Luthor. Like, I completely zoned out at that point too, but I'm like, oh yeah, how does Lex know that he's Clark? It totally doesn't go into like how Lex ever found out. I mean, it's not the worst. It's the worst kept secret ever in this universe, but
because it's like his face.
Honestly, and this is kind of reaching back to the Man of Steel stuff too. Something I would have done differently with this would have just been, let's get rid of the civilian Clark Kent identity altogether. He can still be Clark Kent in his downtime, but he really doesn't do much in civilian guise here, other than go to that one party and have like a couple of lines with Bruce, but then nothing else really comes of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, since there's no Jimmy Olsen, I feel like you can have Lois Lane be the reporter, and Clark Kent is her photographer.
Yeah.
And just, you know, like,
no, dude, there was a Jimmy Olsen apparently. I stuck around into the credits a little bit. There was a Jimmy Olsen listed.
Well,
if it's that CIA guy, then
yeah, but,
well, tough shit. Jimmy Olsen's dead.
You know, they're not playing it up that there's a Jimmy Olsen. So I mean, since they're not doing that, and we're tweaking stuff anyway, just like it makes more sense for Clark Kent to be an anonymous guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he hides his face all the time. But it makes sense because he's got a camera in front of it. You know, I was like,
that's a great point. It's like, why? It's like being a reporter, you put yourself as the face of stories all the time. So why not just be kind of anonymous behind the camera?
And then, how come Superman is always there to save Lois Lane? Probably because he's following her around to the camera.
Yeah.
Anyway, like, it just, and then if he's doing that, it makes so much more sense for, you know, like that whole desert thing, and that's an easy fix, you know?
Well, I wholeheartedly believe the only reason those dream sequences are in there, that's straight up, I mean, that is foreshadowing what I guarantee there's going to be a scene like that happens in one of the Justice League movies.
Oh, no, I'm talking about when Lois Lane is in the desert with those terrorists.
Oh, sorry, wrong desert.
Yeah.
It's so bad that I thought like, oh, desert, you mean the dreams, right? Nope, I forgot there was an actual scene with the desert.
But
he should have been the photographer,
right? It just makes it work. So there's that. I wish the Flash would have shown up to Wonder Woman instead of Batman, because like you said, now we're just like going off a slightly more and more insane person as the movie progresses.
I wish the Flash hadn't shown up at all, really.
Or even not at all. I'm saying, like, you know, Wonder Woman is a mystical, magical character.
Yeah.
So you can have any number of mystical things give her this prophetic dream.
Yeah, I thought for a long time that that whole nightmare sequence was hers.
It's like, okay, what is the one thing that's going to pull Wonder Woman out of 100 years self-seclusion from humanity?
It would have given her character a lot more to do. It would have made more sense if I like that thinking, is that like, she comes from this society based around mythology and gods and so forth and mystical elements. You can develop this character without giving away her whole story before her standalone, but also it gives her a better reason to be there.
Yes. Yeah. Because like she's just looking for a photo, but they don't even have the photo. This is the fucking file of the photo.
And did you notice that was Chris Pine in the photo with her?
Yes, I did notice that.
I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. That's what he looks like. Captain Kirk was alive in 1918.
So, I mean, like, I thought that was poorly handled because, you know, like again, using the Flash or not, but if you have to use him, throw him in there, and then, like, a man shows up on Paradise Island, and it's the Flash instead of, Steve Trevor. But, like, he's like, Diana, this is all fucked up. You gotta, something happened, and, you gotta fix it. You gotta go stop them from killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. Now she's got a mission. Now she's got to try to figure out what the fuck, yada, yada, yada. She's capable because she can do all these things.
it wouldn't have taken away from whatever conflict you're building between Batman and Superman.
No.
Because like we were mentioning before, it would give her a reason to kind of be the one who resolves the conflict between them. Yes. It would give her more of a reason to be there, other than like, hey, you need a big monster killed? I'm here. Like, yeah, I would like that, because that in and of itself is the essence of the Trinity, is that you do have Superman on one end representing kind of the altruistic, idealistic, all yay humanity dream, and then you have Batman on the other end, who is mired in pessimism and is all about like looking for the worst in people. And then you have Wonder Woman kind of being like, we can compromise
and we can be so much more.
Yeah, I like that. That would have worked thematically. That would have worked so much better, because here's the thing: I liked her as Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Again, I didn't really have a problem with any of the actors playing any of the roles.
Yeah. The entire time I'm watching this movie, all I was thinking, I'm like, I can't wait to see a Ben Affleck standalone Batman, and I can't wait to see this Wonder Woman movie now.
Yep.
Because she's really the highlight of the fight. She's doing more in the fight than the other two are.
Oh, absolutely. And
there's that scene where she cuts off Doomsday's hand, and then Batman hits him with the kryptonite gas. Like, I'm like, oh my God, you have 2 out of 3 of the Trinity actually thinking strategically and working together.
Yep.
It's not just they're just throwing themselves at this thing. They're actually like working together as a team almost.
Oh my goodness. And it just, it could have been, like they were right there. They were right on the tip of it, and they just missed, because this movie could have been much better. Again, just changing up a couple things. And maybe, brighten it up just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe not have all the fight scenes be at night. I get it, Batman's a nighttime guy, but Superman, you can work in the day a little bit more. His exile for 5 minutes, I felt was totally unnecessary. I completely tuned out in that scene, because I'm like, he's walking up a mountain, and I'm like, oh, good, there's Kevin Costner. Well, I know not to listen now, because everything. If I learned anything from Man of Steel, I learned that Kevin Costner's like, whatever he starts on about, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be the same speech that he gave 5 minutes ago.
Does it bother you that everybody now in the movie is hallucinating?
Batman's following his weird dreams. Superman talks to his dead dad all the time when he's by himself.
Yeah, and I got him talking to Russell Crowe, because that was a computer program.
I get that, yeah.
But it doesn't make no sense for Kevin Costner to show up.
Lex Luthor being cheeky to an AI. It's like, okay, he's trying to be Tony Stark and Jarvis here. It's like, okay. But nah, I could have done without the Superman exile. Wasn't that long, and it was completely unnecessary, because all you need to get Superman back in action is throw Lois off of a roof that apparently he can hear her wherever he is.
I like the sonic boom effect.
Yeah, I do like the sonic boom effect.
When they had Superman flying off and stuff, I thought that was really cool. But yeah, it's just these little tweaks, and you feel like these guys, Zack Snyder's like, I'm Zack Snyder, I'm the comic book guy. But I'm like, if you're the comic book guy, how did you miss on so many things? Like, and I'm not arguing, I'm not complaining about, like Batman killing people, or Superman being a little more down. I'm for these things, but you're not doing them in any way that makes sense.
But here's the thing. A lot of my concerns and issues with the movie don't come from me being a comic book fan. They don't come from me being like, oh, well, Superman would never do this, or Batman would never do that.
Yes.
It comes from me being like, what is going on? I was there were whole sections I'm like, why are we slow walking to the house again? I have no idea what's happening. Yeah. And then every time I'm like, oh, God damn it, gigantic monster bat. This is a dream, isn't it? I'm like it had nothing to do with being a fan of the comics at all. It had nothing to do with being like, well, this is not my Superman. It's like, is this a movie? Like, that was my big thing. I'm like, I can't follow this.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but for much of this movie, I felt the exact same way I did watching the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, right. I mean, honestly, I'd take this over Fantastic Four any day. Absolutely. But
at least at some point in time, things happen and you realize that you're watching a movie.
Yeah, for better or worse, the characters do stuff. So,
oh, man, poor Fantastic Four.
No, we're never gonna get off of it, man. It's always gonna be.
I mean, yeah, it was just bad, but yeah, like Batman again was super solid in this, and maybe if they get somebody to help Scott Snyder and they just tone him down, these upcoming movies, there's still hope for these upcoming movies. Is the other message I want to get across? Like,
of course, yeah,
you don't need to like abandon ship and like call for everyone's head and fire everybody. They're doing like they put out, like you said, a very good looking movie, and it was almost there. It's just with this one they were trying to do too much, and they got lost in the hype.
I'm really curious to see like how much of stuff was Snyder, how much was studio mandate, because the Justice League stuff you didn't need in this at all, aside from Wonder Woman, which as we mentioned, you could have integrated into this narrative a lot better and a lot more effectively. She can still stick around, but everything else about like, okay, well, here's Barry Allen time traveling, I guess, in dreams or whatever. It's not needed right now. You're still building the world. You're still trying to get a sense of like how these two characters work off of each other, let alone throwing in 3 or 4 more of these guys.
And the other thing that gets me too is like, and I'm not even a fan of the Grant Gustafson to play the Flash and everything.
Right.
The argument that was made to not have Grant Gustafson in the movie.
What was that? I didn't read that article.
Huh?
Well, I didn't hear about that. What was it?
They just said that Zack Snyder said that the TV Flash didn't give him the right look that he wanted, and the tone of this movie was much different from the tone of the TV show and multiverse and yada yada yada. But I'm just like,
how dare he be dressed up in kind of a semi-comic but semi-realistic suit, as opposed to his. But what was he wearing in that? An Iron Man helmet in his little dream sequence? I don't know.
For all that you saw, it could have been Grant Gustin in this suit.
Yeah,
wouldn't even know.
No, it's some Kylo Ren. It's Ezra Miller looking very Kylo Ren-y and with long stringy Kurt Cobain hair. Barry Allen is apparently a homeless person in this universe. Good God, cheer up, DC.
Oh my, for real, man. Like, they're like, we want it to be real, and real means it's dirty and gritty, and everybody's sad. And I'm just like, no, the Flash is an upbeat character.
When they showed the security footage of the Flash in the convenience store, I so wanted Dante to be the clerk.
Oh, that would have been great.
Like Barry Allen's in the back, just like checking all the eggs in the cartons and stuff. And Dante's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Oh my God, I don't want any trouble. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Oh man, and there's a couple of instances where I kind of laughed to myself in the theater, during super serious moments too. Like when Perry's looking at the death of Superman headline, like Superman dead, mourning of loss, and so forth.
Yeah.
And then he flips a page and there's Clark Kent's obituary. Instead of the Clark Kent obituary, if he just flipped the page and that damn football game that he was pressuring Clark to be talking about was on there instead.
Yes.
Like I would have just died with laughter and had that happen. He turns the page like Metropolis Sharks lose to.
That would have meant so much more.
It would have had a payoff to that stupid running joke.
Yes.
Oh man.
It finally got wrote. Clark had to die, but it finally got written.
I was so waiting for it. As soon as I saw the newspaper, I'm like, please tell me the football game's on the next page.
It's so much better.
Oh man.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
One last thing I want to ask you about with regards to what we would have done differently or what we would have tried to incorporate a little bit more. Lex Luthor. From either a different casting choice to motivations, what would you have done differently?
I did not hate Jesse Eisenberg. I thought he got a little off the rails at times, and at the very end, it was definitely too much. And I don't see why Batman didn't brand Jesse Eisenberg at the end of it. But no, I think it would have gone different motivation. I think he hit the role, and especially since we're doing Lex Luthor Jr., we're not doing like Lex Luthor of Lex Luthor fame. That gives you a little more leeway, and I think that fits a little more with the Jared Leto kind of style Joker that we're seeing. That we see this kind of Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
They fit with each other.
I guess,
but
I could not for the life of me understand why is he mad at Superman exactly.
Yeah,
I get he's kind of a Neil. It's like, oh God, God can't be all good. My dad hit me.
Well, no, but I mean, like, what I liked was when he was like, when knowledge doesn't, equal power or whatever, then the world doesn't make any sense. And that to me was like, okay, that is Lex Luthor's motivation.
Okay.
But they didn't carry with that, like that wasn't.
Yeah, he was fidgeting around too many different ideas for me to get a solid beat on. Okay, this is what's driving this character.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I can deal with Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, but I would have toned him down a little bit as far as just him being batshit crazy.
I did like his bald look at the end. I mean, he looked like a war boy. So
but, I was kind of hoping that the baldness would come from being around the kryptonite too much.
Yeah.
Versus because I don't think they shave your head when you go to prison.
No, I don't think they do.
So there's like no reason for them to do it. And even if they did shave his head, he was like razor shaved clean.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense. But I thought it would have been cool if he had he developed some sort of cancer because we just didn't realize
Kryptonite does that
as well.
Yeah.
But I can deal with Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I just wish he would have got a little better direction.
Yeah, I wish he would have gotten better direction. I kind of wish the motivation, like you said, there's hints of it there, but it's not fully realized or not fully established because at the end of the movie, he's straight up teasing Darkseid at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah,
Batman. And I'm like, okay, so you know about something worse coming. Why did you want Superman gone again? Because at that point he's kind of like warning them about Darkseid. He's like, something worse is on its way. I'm like, cool. Why did you want to kill the best bet of stopping it again?
The mentality might be that if he can kill Superman, then anything else the universe throws at him probably won't be an issue.
Oh, okay. I guess. Just don't accept any sweet granny's honey tea from him or whatever.
Oh man,
I did like that. As soon as she keeps looking at that, I'm like, why does she keep looking over there? I'm like, is this coming back to that tea thing? And then I'm like, oh, and then I went from being disappointed in that to being like, oh crap, he's done something. There was a genuine tension. I'm like, oh crap, bye Holly Hunter.
But then and that's the other thing too, because I feel like Superman's worst fear this isn't kryptonite. It's being in the room and unable to save everyone.
Mm-hmm. And he said something about that to some extent.
And it's like they subjected him to his worst fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I didn't feel that's when he goes to the fortress, or he just goes up to the North Pole. But I don't feel like they captured the weight of it.
Well, because it's immediately forgotten about. Like the scene happens and he's standing there in the burning room and crying, and he has one talk with Lois, and then immediately we're moving on past it. Like there's barely any acknowledgement that Capitol Hill blew up.
Yeah. I was just like that. That's Superman's worst fear, is just to watch everything die around him and not be able to do anything. Yeah. And we don't even,
I got the sense of that, and that was one of those moments. it was one of those moments where I was very much like, okay, I can understand Superman being really dour about this. I totally get that. Not being fast enough to save anybody. It's like, yeah, he has every right to be kind of really upset right now.
Yep.
But it doesn't help matters that Amelia after that, like, not immediately after that, but he's again just back to rescuing Lois, and he's like, all right, I'm fine, but they got my mom.
I feel like he should have saved somebody out of the room. You know, like, he's fucking Superman. Like, one person.
One thing that could have been done full circle would be to save the amputee guy, who honestly I didn't feel needed to be there.
No,
there was the same thing would have happened with or without that character's story in there.
Yeah,
Superman would have shown up for that regardless of.
Well, no, but he was only there to transport the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, that was all his character was for. So I mean, like,
Mercy could have done that.
Yeah, that's true. She did die, didn't she?
And that could have been the one that Superman saves, because then that way it's not just, okay, I saved somebody. I'm saving this person out of necessity, though, because she knows what's going on, maybe.
Touche, salesman. You got me on that one. Like, yeah. Write it up, you know? Like, I'm sold.
Because honestly, like, Mercy, from what I understand, Mercy is a character from the animated series originally that was incorporated into the comics, much like Harley Quinn, like the Superman equivalent of Harley Quinn being a henchwoman.
Yes.
And I was like, well, knowing that character was Mercy, I was like, well, that's kind of a shitty way to go for her, especially for someone who's like,
yeah, it was a
supposed to be a competent right hand to left. I mean, that's my own interpretation of the character coming in. I mean, sure, it's just like, oh, we got this character named Mercy Graves. Oh, okay, fine. Throw her into the mix. She blows up. Ah, fuck it.
Yep.
She ain't Harley Quinn. We don't need to worry about it.
That's what I feel like. Yeah, it was just a waste. It was a waste of the character. They didn't even need to call her that.
But yeah, I do admit that. Yeah, that should have been one of the big things to drive Superman in this movie, is the idea of like, okay, some people like you, some people don't. You're still going to do your job. You know, you should at this point in your career not be wavering in that. It's
right.
Come to terms with it a little bit, be more accepting of your role, and haters be damned and everything like that. But at the same time, the problem is that you can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been a good kind of thing to focus on in this movie.
And I would have not done the death of Superman. I just would have not done that.
I mean, the thing is that I didn't mind it. I had a feeling, the more I thought about it after the reveal of Doomsday, I'm like, well, they're going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I became more accepting. I'm like, they're going to do it. They're not going to soft soap Doomsday. In this day and age, you know, the fact that in a world where Bane is no longer a henchman,
yeah,
like Doomsday's, after that trailer was dropped, the more I thought about it, I'm like, Doomsday's not just in here to be the third act fight. Like, he's going to have some consequence on what happens, and it's probably going to be killing Superman. So I became more accepting of that. The problem is that it wasn't earned in the movie.
Right.
Like, that whole memorial for him when they're all gathered around what's left of Heroes Park or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't buy that people would be having this outpouring of grief.
And again, it's like, if you're gonna go down this road, then, you know, the whole beginning of the movie is how much people were enraged at the damage Superman caused. You need to have him stop something from, you know, killing hundreds of thousands of people. I
mean, you could argue that he did with that final battle,
but I don't think it was public enough then, you know, because I'm saying, like, they made such a point of, oh, the thing is empty, it's empty, that, you know, no one really knows what was going on. It's just like shit's exploding. Like, we don't know what's happening.
It should have been a theme throughout the whole movie, was the kind of like this, I need to get redemption in the eyes of the public.
Yes.
Like that should have been something throughout the movie, not just him being like, why don't they like me?
Yeah. I don't get it.
It should have been cookies. And I'm guessing that's what those little scenes were about, the little glimpses here and there. But you know what? You could have tied them more into the narrative than just being like, he's towing a tanker and he's doing this. Yeah, I get it.
Bad, so he's towing a tanker.
it's a glimpse into the stuff, but you could have had it be of more consequence, because the way things are kind of going, when you have those that dialogue from all these commentators on top of it that just keeps going, that I'm not really listening to the commentators at that point. I kind of checked out in those scenes. So it really didn't invest me in him so much. And here's the thing is that if you kill him, kill him. But dude has to be dead for more than 5 minutes for the impact of that scene to carry on. Like, end the movie and don't leave it up in the air.
Right.
Have it be a surprise for the next movie. Like, I have a feeling that's the way part one's going to be, is that shit goes down. Bruce and Diana have their league kind of assembled, but they're not going to be able to work effectively against, I'm guessing, what is coming is Darkseid or whatever the invading force is. They fail miserably. And then since it's a part one, the very end of it can be like, guess who's back?
Well, and also it's like Darkseid, Superman's fighting not Darkseid, Superman's fighting Doomsday in this movie. And what do? We shoot a fucking nuke at him. And it pretty much kills him. So I'm like, if you're gonna kill Superman, at this point, when you hit him with the nuke, why don't you just have him, like, he falls. And then you can't, like, you don't see where he lands. They don't show him, like, in the ocean or whatever. He falls. And then it cuts to Bruce and Diana, like, holy shit. Now we got to build up the rest of the team in hopes that it's enough to stop this thing. We don't know what's going on with Superman.
Leave it open-ended as to, like, is he dead or is he not dead?
Yeah. And then you come to find out in the next movie, whenever we need him, that he's like, well, I was doing my best. All I did was try. And then they shot a nuke at me. So I decided to not do anything for a while.
Yeah, he's like become disillusioned or something. So he takes time off. He takes actual legitimate time off, and then it gives him reason to come back.
Yeah, but
what they could have done at the end of this movie is that leave it wide open that whether or not he survived the nuclear blast, and then you show Bruce Wayne going to a cafe in Italy, and as he's ordering a specific, he looks across the way, and then
Superman and Diana sipping.
Superman and Lois just sitting across the way, having a vacation.
Oh my goodness!
And then you have
a knowing little nod and go their separate ways.
Then you have Wonder Woman discover the Batcave for some reason. I don't know. But I mean, I want to echo what you said earlier, is that although I didn't really enjoy this movie so much, it's not the killing blow for the DC universe.
No.
The DC it's limping right now, but Suicide Squad hopefully can be the bandage that's needed to kind of be like, okay, back to business.
Right. Yep. And I mean, and this is what I'm talking about with your marketing too. Like, if you look at Deadpool, and they had to change it up for their marketing, and it paid off in spades. And I feel like if you would have been showing all the Justice League stuff as your trailers, so no one really knows what this movie is even about.
Yeah,
that would have done so much better.
Yeah, I agree. That type of viral marketing even could have worked out very advantageous to them. But getting back to what I mentioned way at the beginning of this, the hype train for this thing for 3 years, I feel really hindered it a lot with regards to its final release. Yep. Because you build up expectations so badly on this movie that who knows what. I'm kind of curious what the critical response would have been to this movie had there not been 3+ years of being like, look out for this, it's going to be awesome, and maybe just people getting sick of hearing about it.
Yeah,
I'm really kind of curious. Had they kind of been like, okay, yeah, it's in production right now, but we're not going to say anything, we're not releasing anything,
Yeah.
If they play their cards really close to the vest with it.
And I hope that they learn a little bit from these sort of things and do better in the future. It's nothing that can't be done. So I mean, I really wanted to like this movie, and I was sad and disappointed when I didn't. But
I have, now that I've had a little bit of time from watching it to kind of just reflect on certain things, I feel almost sort of similar to the way I felt about something like Amazing Spider-Man 2, in that what you mentioned is there are good highlights in it. It's a good highlight reel of DC icons.
Oh yeah.
And for that, whenever this thing gets released or whenever clips of it will be like, the clips on their own will be great to check out. But with regards to an overall story, it can be something of a chore to sit through if things like plot and pacing bother you when they're not done well. It'll kind of wear on you. If you can just enjoy something on the visual aesthetic alone, then you have at this movie, because it is a visual treat.
Yep.
But it needs, for me, it has to be a very well balanced machine of the plot and the visuals to coincide. The same way with my comics too. Like, as I was thinking more about it, a lot of my issues with this movie tie into a lot of things I have concern with some comics, especially big event comics.
Yeah.
And tie-ins. Like, there are times when it's like, okay, so Diana Prince shows up at this party. This feels like, okay, this was what would happen if Diana Prince all of a sudden showed up in a Batman comic for no reason, and then it's kind of the little asterisk at the bottom saying, check out Wonder Woman number whatever for the full story on why she's here. Like, that's what I genuinely felt like whenever a side character or a subplot took focus for 2 minutes.
How much better would this movie have been if they had those on there? That would have been great.
Here's the thing. If that ends up happening with the Wonder Woman standalone movie, and like they're actually like saying like, here, we're going to fill in the gaps of what she was doing while all this other crap was going on, I'll be like, whoa, okay, that's different. I'll be like, I've never seen that happen before. But I don't think that's what they're going to do.
I mean, like, they kind of did that the same way, where it's like, this is what the destruction of Metropolis was like from Bruce Wayne's point of view.
Yeah, yeah. So there are those little kind of moments. I'm kind of like wondering, it's like, were you thinking with regards to comic book? Like, yeah, let's say the battle for Metropolis was a big event thing. Here's the Batman tie-in. Here's Batman's one shot for that whole summer event crossover.
And again, and that could be your marketing. You know, it's like, that was a Jeep commercial that could have easily been your marketing for the movie. Like,
I will say their product placement was way toned down in this.
Yeah, I mean,
aside from the Jeep thing, like, I didn't really notice
the Airlines when Wonder Woman was trying to leave and then she gets off the plane.
Oh yeah. That was kind of the other big one. So aside from transportation, there wasn't really too much blatant product placement.
Yeah,
which is fine, because honestly, that Jeep commercial took me out of the actual scene, because when he was driving through the streets of Metropolis, all I could think was that narrator saying, justice, precision.
Oh, man. And I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I just want to say that, too.
I love
that Affleck, Jeremy Irons relationship.
Yeah. Frankly, like, this is a much different Alfred. Like, I'm glad he's not full-on Butler. That he's if anything, he's just kind of like the second in command of the operation, and
he's more like a whistler.
Yeah, and that his main thing is that he's not really always on Bruce about being like, when are you going to be a normal boy?
Yeah, because they've been doing it for 30 years. So
yeah,
that argument has been made 800,000 times already. So
I mean, he gets his Snyder marks in from. It's like, for future generations of Waynes, not that there ever will be, but I did like that. But yeah, that basically his main thing in this is to be like, you sure about this dude? This guy seems all right.
Or I mean, like, you know, if he's sitting there, Batman comes home, Batmobile's all trashed to shit. What happened to you? Fucking Superman showed up. Well, do you see what he did to the car? Like, what are you doing? You're insane. Look at what he did to the car, and he did that without even, it's not even the hint of breaking a sweat.
And if Bruce Wayne just like left at that, and Alfred's like just sighs and is like picks up a wrench, is like,
yeah,
oh, 80th time's a charm.
Oh man, that'd be great. But yeah, so I still think they did their relationship pretty well.
Yeah, that relationship was very well. Honestly, it was a relationship I invested in the most in this movie.
Yes.
Anytime it was just Affleck and Irons in the Batcave just running dialogue off of each other, I was fully into it.
Yep.
Like, yeah, Affleck is great as this. Irons is great as Alfred. Bring on their standalone.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we could say. Like that was just.
Well, we had to end on a bat note, clearly. So, did you guys did ratings on your thing, right? What'd you say yours was?
Mine, I gave it 5 out of 10. Go see it, but don't expect great things.
Yeah, I'd say I give it 5 out of 10 as well. It's got way more problems than Man of Steel, but you know what? There are things you can kind of latch onto here and there.
Oh, there is golden nuggets abound in this thing. It's just not put together correctly.
Yeah,
the sum of its parts is greater than the whole, or something like that, is what I want to say, because like all the little individual things should have worked, but for some strange reason they didn't.
And as I mentioned before, it's like if you come out, hopefully you come out of the experience as kind of the way we did, where we're disappointed, but we're not totally okay. No more DC films.
Oh no, I'm totally jazzed for the Wonder Woman movie and the next Batman movie. I cannot wait for those things to come out, because from what I saw here, they can be sweet.
It did not kill off my enthusiasm for this universe. If this is the tone, and I mean, let's put it this way, if this is the tone that the universe is going to be going, that's fine by me. If it's going to be a little bit darker than Marvel, I'm okay with that, honestly, because it has to do something to differentiate itself from Marvel. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, okay, so this is just like Marvel.
Oh yeah, so, I think Marvel is easier with the jokes, where you don't need them for the DC universe, but I do feel like it's too dark.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, hopefully it was something like Wonder Woman, where you're delving into mythology, and from what I understand, it's going to be a period piece.
World War I. So
yeah, kind of like First Avenger was set in World War II. This is going to be set in World War I. So hopefully that allows it to be a little bit lighter. And from what I've seen about Suicide Squad, that looks like
gas is such a light subject.
What's that?
I said because mustard gas is such a light and fluffy thing.
Oh man, now you've got me really kind of concerned now, because now I'm like, oh man, the way, if Zack Snyder's is he creative consultant at least on that or something?
I don't honestly know.
I have a feeling, like, does he at least have some kind of credit in every one of these movies now because of starting up with Man of Steel?
Yeah, I think he does.
Okay, great. So we're gonna spend like 5 minutes on Wonder Woman mourning the loss of somebody due to mustard gas in the Wonder Woman movie. Steve Trevor will die of consumption.
Oh man.
But I mean, for example, Suicide Squad. It still looks dark. I mean, it's centered around what should be thematically darker characters, but it looks engaging. It looks like it's going to be fun on some level.
Yeah.
There's some energy about it, more so than this.
Right.
So there is still hope for this universe to find solid ground.
Oh yeah. I'm not disillusioned. I'm not any less excited for the whole slate of movies they got coming up. I just I hope that they see. It's like when you do anything, you see what you can do better, you see what you did good, and you move on from there. I just hope that they take the good stuff and carry it and nurture it, and they take the bad stuff and just cut it away. I mean, that's the good thing about these. Like, you have a plan, you've got all these things set. You can look back and be like, well, hey, this was bad, but let's try this with the next one. Let's try this or that. Marvel got their system working. The DC can get their system working too. It's just going to take time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully after this movie's debut, they got a clearer idea of what they want to incorporate and what they don't.
Yeah.
That they don't just go around saying like, well, that was a fluke accident.
Well,
with a plan.
I don't see why that didn't work. Let's do the same thing.
Oh, dude! Before we started this, I was catching a little bit of the. It was a live stream event for a while. The Rebirth announcements.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that might have to be a totally separate thing. That's all. I'll leave it. All I can take away from it is that Dan DiDio needs to not be on mic all the time because he laughs way too much at this event at everything. But anyways, yeah, I'd give it a 5 out of 10 as well. Definitely go check out the movie if Max and I haven't stressed that enough. Formulate your own thoughts and opinions on it. Let us know in the comments if you agree with certain aspects, if you don't agree, if you think there's something you saw in the movie that you think could have been handled better or was just fine. Let us know. And like, comment, subscribe to us here on youtube.com/MikeMcGTV and also over at 3 Geeks, youtube.com/3 Geeks Network. And once again, it's Mike McG and
Max Andrews.
Okay, Max Andrews. We'll get like an actual like intro going for ourselves at some point.
Yeah, we need to work on the.
I'm working on a theme for this and a theme for 3 Geeks actually. So hopefully something will get finalized. But yeah, this has been To the Chat Cave, Dawn of Justice retrospective brainstorming session. I don't know what to call it, but anyways, thanks again, Max. It was fun to kind of like vent the frustrations and the praise at the same time with somebody.
Well, yeah, I'm always down to talk Batman, old chum.
All right. We'll be sure to try and check back with you next time with some more Bat-related content here on McG TV. Peace.